What up everybody, Cult Nerdy Core, back here with another video, and this one will be another collection video. This one's a very special collection video though. This is the update to my 2018 Vita collection, which those of you who don't know, is my first video I ever put out on YouTube. So I'm really excited to make a more updated version of that and introduce some of the old new games that I got for the console. So it's been just about a year from when I started this channel, and the support has been great, and I'm really appreciative of it. Anybody who's watched the video, liked the video, subscribed, I really appreciate all the support in any way possible. So just before we actually hop into the actual video, for those of you, if you haven't watched my 2019 collection video so far, I'm going to be updating this in another way from the 2018 videos. This will be for all my collection videos that I make in 2019. I'm going to apply a rating system to all my games. So in the other collection videos from 2018, I only really just talked about like if I liked a game, what they were about, and just give like a very brief summary of the game. This time I'm going to actually do a legitimate rating system for the games. So I'll just give it a score out of 1 to 10. And then you can kind of see like what games I like, what games I would put on the same level as others. Just kind of switch it up. And for those of you who have watched my older collection videos, you at least get some new content for it. And there's also some new games as well. Alright, first up is Army Corps of Hell. This game is kind of like a Pikmin style of game. Just very edgy and very heavy metal. If any of you have played the Pikmin games or anything like it, I think the Overlord games are similar to this, if I'm not mistaken. You basically control your main dude, which is this guy. I don't know if he's like a sorcerer or a demon or something like that, but he controls a lot of minions, and each minion has a different type. So there's like sword, spear, and axe units, and then you kind of like fling them at enemies, and the minions do the attacking themselves. And you can put them into different formations to protect you, to do damage, and to kind of increase movement speed and stuff like that. So it's a very unique style of game. It's decent. I would give it probably a 6, slightly above average. The music's good for the game. The aesthetics are cool. It's just not really my style of game. Alright, next up is Assassin's Creed Liberation. This game was originally a PS Vita exclusive. I think I released on the PS4, I would say probably a year ago or two. This game's pretty good. If you're looking for a game that kind of resembles the power that the PS Vita can put out, this would be one of them, along with Killzone Mercenaries. They kind of show that a full-fledged console game can actually be transported to the PS Vita and hold up really well. This basically just plays like your average Assassin's Creed game. Story is pretty interesting. It's not really, I would say, the best Assassin's Creed game. I'd still give that to probably Black Flag or Revelations or 2. But it's a decent game. I'd probably give it a 7. Alright, next up is BlazBlue Continuum Shifts Extended. So the Extended Edition really just gets you a couple new characters. So the BlazBlue games are a 2D fighting game. In my opinion, they're actually one of the smoothest fighting game series I've ever played. The art style is really cool, and the sprites and the movement and control of the sprites actually works really well. The story is something I'm not really interested in. I tried to. It's very confusing, and I feel like you needed to play the other games to really get what the hell's going on in this game. And it's very, 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 very long, and there's a lot of like winding paths. But I really loved the online for this game when it was active. I don't know if it still is. It was a very small community, but it was very active every day, and there's some great people on it. This is still a very good fighting game. If you're into a long story, very anime heady, definitely recommend it for that. And the arcade mode's still really fun, so I would still recommend this game. I'd give this game probably a solid 8.5. It's one of the better fighting games I've played. Alright, next up is Deception IV Blood Tides. So this is probably the most unique game I have on the Vita. You're basically the daughter of, I forget if it's a death or a demon or something like that. And basically there's a bunch of knights and people trying to hunt you down. So you set traps that can either hinder like movement speed, send enemies on certain paths, blind them, stun them, fling them up in the air, and then your goal is to basically create these elaborate, like almost mouse traps, like the game Mousetrap, in order to like shred armor, disorient enemies before you kill them. And the longer the combo you make, the better points you'll get for the map. So it's actually a really unique game. If that sounds like it's interesting to you, I'd definitely recommend it. I would probably give it a 6, a slightly above average game for me. Again, it was just one I couldn't get into. It's definitely still a good game. It's just not my style. Alright, next up is Dead or Alive 5 Plus. This is basically just Dead or Alive 5 on the Vita. I think it came with some DLC and extended story, if I'm not mistaken. It's still a good game. This one actually runs pretty well as well. I think fighting games are really where the Vita shines, as I said before. Dead or Alive 5 still pretty good. Plays like a standard Dead or Alive game. It's I don't know what you call it, like a 3D plane instead of a 2D plane. And it's not really combo heavy. It's very juggle mechanics. It's still a really good game. Story was actually pretty interesting and was easy to pick up, so I would recommend this game. I'd give it a 7. Alright, next up is the game I talk about too much on this channel. It's Hotshot Golf World Invitational. So if any of you follow the channel at all, you know I praise Hotshots basically any chance I can get, and this one happens to be my favorite, so I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because I talk about it all the time. Amazing game, really cool controls. If you've played any of the Hotshot games, it's kind of the bar system still, so you go power, accuracy, hit the tee, and then it shoots. It's a very good mix of arcadey and realistic styles of game. It's very hard to master, but it's very easy to get into, and I would highly recommend this game if you're interested in any type of sports game or looking to try to pick up a sports game here and there. If you're trying to get into the Hotshot series, I would definitely recommend this one over any other one. Alright, next up is Killzone Mercenaries, aka probably one of the main reasons to buy a Vita, and if you're a techie, the only reason to buy a Vita, because this game is really pretty on the Vita. This, in terms of any game I've played, is the best game in terms of showing off the PS Vita's graphical capabilities. This game looks stunning. It looks like a standard console FPS, and it actually runs really well. It's a pretty short campaign, but it plays exactly like Killzone. The dual analog sticks really help this game shine, and the multiplayer was kind of active when I played it. I never really got into the multiplayer. I really just played it for the single player. The single player is a lot of fun. Short missions, but definitely worth it if you're into the Killzone game or looking for a shooter on the Vita. I'd probably give this game like a 8.7. Alright, next is Lego Batman 2 DC Superheroes. It's just a Lego game, standard Lego game. Runs really good on the Vita because Lego games aren't super heavy on their like graphical capabilities, and there's not a lot going up on the screen all the time. Just a fun game to play through. Lego games are always awesome. This game's no exception. I give it a 7. It's a solid Lego game. Definitely not one of the worst I've played, and the story is pretty funny. Alright, next up is Little Deviants. This one just came with my PS Vita. I got a bundle. I forget what it was called. It was like the first day release bundle edition. I don't know if it was specifically at Best Buy or not, but that's where I got mine. You can see they're not for resale here. This is basically just a tech demo. Basically, it's just a bunch of mini games that show off the Vita's capabilities. I'd give it like a 4. It's not a good game, but it shows off some of the tech capabilities, and there's some fun mini games, so it's not awful. Alright, next up is ModNation Racers Road Trip. I got this game thinking it would be another Sonic Racers in terms of the quality, but for some reason, for a much slower racing game, the lag on this game is pretty heavy. I don't know if it's just badly optimized for the Vita, or I'm just specifically having issues with this game. I don't know if other people have the same issues, but I found this game really laggy whenever a lot of items or speed boosts are being used, and or map transitions or anything like that. And the load times are really long on this game. So when it works and is not lagging too bad, it's actually a really good game. Definitely just above average kart racer, which kart racers are always good fun. I'd probably give this game a 6. I would say it's slightly above average. If the lag wasn't there, probably around a 7.5. Alright, next up is Mortal Kombat, which I'm pretty sure technically is Mortal Kombat 9, if I'm not mistaken. So this one, again, is another game that comes with all the DLC. One of the benefits of owning a Vita is if you want to get any games for the Vita, you usually get all the DLC with it. So that was really cool. And they added a bunch of Vita-specific, like, challenge towers. As I said before, fighting games are really where the Vita shines. Mortal Kombat is no exception. They definitely dumbed down the graphics compared to other fighting games on the console, but it runs very smoothly, so I'd rather have the game run well than look pretty. The story is still really good. NetherRealms does a really good job with their fighting game stories, and I would definitely recommend this game if you're looking for a good fighting game for the console. It runs really well, tons of characters to play through, really good arcade mode with the tag mode, which is still probably my favorite version of the arcade, and probably the main reason why this is my favorite Mortal Kombat game. So I'd probably give this game a solid 8. Alright, next up is Need for Speed Most Wanted. In my opinion, it's actually one of the better racing games for the console that I've played. It runs pretty well. The graphics are definitely dumbed down compared to the console version, but it still plays really well. It's basically just a open world Need for Speed game where you go around racing different challenges and looking forward to move up in the street racing ranks, and then you challenge like these certain leaders as you go, basically unlocking their cars and unlocking the next stages in the game, and you just kind of rinse and repeat throughout the whole game. There's like an open world element to it where you can go around collecting different cars to race in, and they all have their own upgrading trees and stuff like that, so that part's really interesting, customizing all the cars. If you're into Need for Speed or racing games, definitely recommend it for that. If not, and you're not into racing games, there's definitely better ones to get if you're looking forward to just getting one for the console. So I'd probably give this game a solid, like a 7.2. Alright, next up is Persona 4 Golden, aka the game everybody should own on this console in my opinion. This game's amazing. It's a JRPG from AllStars, and has probably one of the more interesting stories I've ever played in a game. And this game probably is in my top 10 all time, if not right out of it, like 11 or 12-ish. It's a fantastic game. The characters are very interesting. The story's great. It's turn-based style combat with a kind of dungeon crawler overworld system, and you basically play as a guy who moves into this small town, who starts a new school, and you start to make friends, and then you can figure out that you can go to this other world and then use your powers in this other world, kind of like a Pokemon style of thing where you collect kind of things to fight for you, which are known as your personas. Alright, next up is Rayman Origins. This is actually a really good platforming game. This is probably one of the smoothest running games for the console. It definitely just feels like it was meant to be made for this console. It's really fun. If any of you play the Rayman game, it's basically really fast-paced platforming with a decent challenge. It's not like super hard or anything like that, but definitely if you're not paying attention, or if you haven't played the map once or twice, you'll definitely make some mistakes along the way. 2D platformer, really good. I wouldn't put it too high. I'd probably give it like 7.5. Not because the game deserves a 7.5, it's just specifically for me. I'm not a huge platformer fan. That's why I'd give it a 7.5. But this game's actually really good, and I would highly recommend it. Alright, next up is Resistance Burning Skies. I really wouldn't recommend this game unless you're huge into first-person shooters. I would definitely recommend Killzone over this. It's basically how you shouldn't have done Killzone and how you shouldn't have done a first-person shooter on this console. It really doesn't play that well, and it doesn't really feel like a Resistance game, which sucks because the original 3 Resistance games are amazing, and I would highly recommend anybody play those on the PS3, especially Resistance 3. So basically you play as, well, a Resistance, and you play as a firefighter, basically fighting aliens invading type thing. It's kind of like Battle of Los Angeles, if anybody's seen that movie. But I would just recommend playing the first 3 and skipping this one. Really just because of the combat and how the game feels. It just doesn't feel good to play. I'd probably give this game like a 4.2. Alright, next up is Shinobu 2, Revenge of Zen. I'm pretty sure I said that right. I'm not 100%. So this is a stealth game, kind of like if any of you guys played Tenchu. It follows the same style as that. So you basically play as a ninja, and you go around kind of stealthing your way around and doing a lot of like silent takedown kills and a lot of wall mechanics, a lot of light shadow, stealth play and stuff like that. There's also a lot of sword fighting if you just kind of want to run and gun it. And you go around fighting for a certain faction that you choose. So there's you do certain missions for them, earning rep for them, and advancing the story with whatever faction you choose. There's 3 main factions. So it's a really good game, I'd say. I'd probably give it a 7.5. Definitely a really good stealth game. Alright, next up is Sonic All-Star Racing Transform. As I was saying before with ModNation Racers, this was the game I was trying to look for another one of. I really love this game. I think it's one of the best racers, if not the best racer I've played on the console. The riding is very, very smooth. The Sonic All-Star Racing is basically a fast version of Mario Kart. One of the main things it has, though, is a pretty long like challenge story mode where you kind of unlock different characters and stuff like that, which is really fun to play through. And I like games where you don't get all your characters off the start, but can earn it through playing the game actually and not buying it. So this I would highly recommend. I'd probably give this game like a solid 8.7. Alright, next up is Soul Sacrifice. This is a pretty unique game in that it is a game where you craft your own spells. And so basically what the main draw of this game is you basically play as a mage, and you go around completing these various dungeons and missions by using spells that you create. So throughout leveling up in the game, you'll have more different abilities, different crafting materials and stuff like that, and you can create a variety of different spells. So you can create ones that protect you, ones that deal damage in certain styles of damage, ones that can transform you into things to get around the map. Overall, if that sounds interesting to you, I would recommend this game. It personally wasn't for me. I couldn't finish it, but it was a well-made game, so I'd probably give it a solid 7. Alright, next up is Street Fighter Cross Tekken. So this game probably goes as the biggest disappointment for the Vita. As I said before, fighting games I think are one of the best things that the Vita does well, and this was one I was really excited for when it came out. So after playing Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, BlazBlue, I was really excited to pick this up to add another fighting game to get into for the console, and honestly I just couldn't get into it. The roster is massive, which is a big plus, and you get all the DLC, which is also a big plus, but I find the combat and the arcade ladder to be very bare bones, and the online wasn't really that active, and the lobby systems weren't that great. So overall, like, if you really love the Street Fighter style of play and you just want to pick up another fighter for the Vita, I could recommend it for that. Otherwise than that, overall I would give this game probably a 5. It's an average game, has a decent sized roster, and plays like a pretty decent Street Fighter game. Those would be the positives. but the lack of features in game modes is really a big hindrance to this game, and what really lowers the score for me personally. Alright, next up is Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So we went from the most disappointing fighting game, in my opinion, to probably the best. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, this game is amazing. This game came out exactly when the Vita came out. This is when I picked up right as the Vita came out, and I've beat the arcade with every single character. I like the game so much. This is actually also one of the harder games to find for the Vita. If you're trying to get into Vita collection, this is one that if you see, definitely pick it up. Overall, this game is a 3v3 style of fighting game. It's a 2D style of fighting game and runs very smoothly. This is one of those games that the Vita, you don't see any lag, or like the combat or the graphics feel like they've been dumbed down for the console. This game runs really well on the console, and when the online was up, the lobby system was really good, and there was a very active community for it. So this is definitely a game. If you're looking to get a fighting game for the console, I would definitely recommend this over any other one. I would probably give this game a solid like 8.5. Alright, next up is Unit 13. It's a third-person shooter. It's like based in kind of like a modern warfare style of setting, and you basically go through this, I would like air quote story, where you kind of they give you a mission that has a certain objective. It's either like stealth based, kill everybody, or timed, or you have to like kill a certain boss, like an assassination mission. And you basically pick your operative that like specializes on either stealth, certain weapons, or like certain abilities that they can use to help complete the mission, and you level them up and kind of just base your gameplay on the type of operative you're leveling up currently. It's an alright game. It's kind of very repetitive. The combat and like the actual gunplay feels pretty good. It's just there's no real story to it, and the missions that you do get seem very kind of like mini game-ish and kind of repetitive. Overall, I'll probably give this game like a 6.5. It's definitely an above average game and runs pretty well on the Vita. It's just the repetitiveness of the missions kind of brings down the score a little bit for me. Alright, next up is one of my new additions to the Vita collection, and that's Virtua Tennis 4 World Tour Edition. This one I initially picked up actually because I've never seen it before. So overall, this game plays kind of like more of a simulation style of tennis game compared to something like Mario Tennis or something like that. It definitely doesn't go for full serious simulation style. There's definitely still some arcadey elements to it, and as you can see with right here in this square, there's a lot of different mini games and mini game like challenges to like upgrade your character, and there's this full fleshed out like career mode, which is really cool. It's kind of almost plays like a game of life. So you go through this board, and you kind of do certain milestones or certain tennis matches based on the tiles that you land on. And you can go through a whole career, leveling up through the ranks and leveling up your character. It's actually really interesting, really fun, and the tennis gameplay actually runs really well on the Vita. The graphics definitely don't look the best, but in terms of like the smoothness and how the tennis play actually feels, it's really, really fun and really definitely worth it if you're any sort of interested in these types of games. Overall, I'd probably give this game somewhere about an 8.5. It is a really good game, and it's actually quite surprised me on how good it was, since I've never really played this style of tennis game since probably Top Spin on the original Xbox. This is definitely one I would recommend picking up for the console. Alright, coming in next is The Walking Dead. This is a complete first season and is the Telltale series of this game. So this is like any other Telltale's games, if anybody knows, and most people should know about them. It's basically a point-and-click adventure game with some movement built in, and some mini games, or kind of like quick time events built in. So this follows the Walking Dead show, not screen for screen, but it follows in that universe. It follows a different story. It's a pretty good game if you're just looking for the story elements to it. If you're looking for like a full-fledged out game that you're playing and it has amazing gameplay and you're playing it specifically for fun gameplay, don't get this game. If you're looking for a story, I'd recommend these games. There's probably, I think, 4 or 5 in the series now. The rest of them are on like the PS4. It's a decent game. I'd probably give it a like 7.2. I actually really enjoyed the story of the first game. This is I've only played the first 2 out of the Walking Dead series, but this first one was definitely really well written. Alright, and lastly we got Wipeout 2048. So this is a futuristic racing game that's always been exclusive for the PlayStation consoles. So this game basically is a very fast-paced, I would say almost like a kart racer in terms of the like drifting mechanics and weapon systems in it. But it definitely doesn't play like a kart racer. It's very fast. It kind of has like a wavy movement speed, like your turns and stuff like that almost feel like you're on water type thing. There's different game modes, like there's battle mode, races that you can also use weapons. There's weaponless races, there's checkpoint ones, there's like avoiding cars and going through checkpoint style of games. And it kind of has a really big, I would say almost like a campaign, similar to like the Sonic Racing, where you kind of just select different track maps that you're using, and it's kind of in like a big tree, and you fill out the tree to gain points and unlock new vehicles and stuff like that. So it's definitely a pretty good game. The only issue with this game really is the load times. The load times are horrendous in this game. You'll be waiting like a solid 2 minutes to get into a race. From the time of booting up the game. It's definitely one of the major drawbacks of the game, and the race types can kind of get repetitive. But overall, this is a really well made game, and the feel and the music is really well put together for this game. Overall, I'd probably give this game a solid 7.5. Alright, so there you have it. That's my full Vita collection for 2019. This is one of the 3 game collections I will be updating. This one was more so to put it in this format. I didn't really get too many games for this console, and also was my first video, so I kind of feel like as like a channel 1 year type of thing, it was pretty cool to redo the first video that I ever did just for me personally. I hope you guys also enjoyed it. The other 2 that I will be updating, first I'll be doing my PS4 collection video, so that should be the next video I upload. Then I'll be doing a hidden gems video for the PS4. I felt like putting those 2 together would work out the best. And then I'll be updating my PS3 collection after that. So thanks for watching, and remember, everybody has their nerdiness at their core.